The story starts with this man. His name is Earl Whitaker, and if you saw him on the street, you wouldn't look twice. Gray beard, weathered face, hands that looked like they'd spent decades working honest labor. The kind of man who fixes fences, tends cattle, and keeps to himself. But there's something in his eyes, something cold and calculating that doesn't match the peaceful life he's living. Welcome to the real conflict zone. Earl sits alone in his ranch house, deep in the Mexican desert, miles from anywhere that matters. The sun is setting, painting the sky blood red through his dusty window. He's cleaning a revolver, a Colt Python, polished to perfection despite the rust on everything else around him. His movements are methodical, practiced, the kind of muscle memory that never fades no matter how many years pass. Outside, the wind kicks up dust devils across his property. 300 acres of nothing, dried grass, a few scraggly cattle, buildings that look like they're held together by hope and habit. To anyone passing through, this place is the definition of nowhere. A forgotten corner of the world where men go to disappear. And Earl Whitaker disappeared 20 years ago. The ranch house is sparse. A table, 2 chairs, a cot in the corner. No pictures on the walls. No television. A radio that only picks up static and occasional Mexican corridos from a station 50 miles south. The kind of place that isn't a home, it's a hiding spot. Or maybe a waiting room. Earl finishes with the revolver and sets it on the table. Then he pulls out 5 more handguns from a locked chest beneath his floorboards. A Glock 19.
A6 Sauer P226.
2 Beretta M9s. And a Desert Eagle that looks like it could punch through engine blocks. He cleans each one with the same careful attention, checking magazines, testing actions, counting ammunition. 147 rounds for the handguns. Not enough. He moves to a false panel in the wall and pulls out something wrapped in oiled canvas. Inside is an M4 carbine with a scope that cost more than most people's cars. Beside it, a Remington 870 shotgun, cut down to something that barely qualifies as legal. 3 fragmentation grenades, vintage military issue. A combat knife with a blade that's been sharpened so many times the steel is thin as a razor. Earl lays everything on his table like a surgeon preparing instruments. Then he sits back down and waits. The sun drops below the horizon, and darkness swallows the ranch whole. The only light comes from a single oil lamp burning low on the table, casting Earl's shadow long and thin against the wall. He doesn't move, doesn't even seem to breathe, just sits there, hands folded, eyes on the door. At exactly 9:47 p.m., he hears the first engine. It's distant, maybe 3 miles out, but in the desert silence, sound carries. Earl's head tilts slightly, listening. A second engine joins the first, then a third. For vehicles, he estimates, probably trucks, coming fast across the hardpan from the southeast. He doesn't stand up. Not yet. The engines grow louder, and Earl can tell from the sound they're not taking the road. They're cutting across open desert, heading straight for his property. No headlights visible yet, which means they're running dark. Professional. Or at least trying to be. 2 miles out, Earl finally stands. He's 6'2", lean and hard despite his age, moving with the easy confidence of a man who's done this dance 1,000 times before. He pulls on a canvas jacket, loads his pockets with spare magazines, and straps the combat knife to his belt. The M4 goes over his shoulder. The python stays in his hand. He walks to the window and peers out into the darkness. Now he can see them. For sets of dust clouds, illuminated faintly by moonlight, coming fast. They'll be at his fence line in 90 seconds. Earl blows out the oil lamp, plunging the house into darkness. Then he slips out the back door and vanishes into the night. The cartels approach. Inside the lead truck, Rafael Guzman checks his pistol for the 3rd time. He's nervous, which he hates admitting even to himself. This should be simple. Roll up on some old gringo rancher, scare him a little, take what they came for, and disappear back across the real border before sunrise. Easy money, quick work. But Rafael's been doing this for 6 years, and he's learned to trust his gut. And his gut is telling him something's wrong. How much further? He asks the driver. A kid named Paco who can't be more than 19. 1 mile, maybe less, Paco says, squinting into the darkness. Should see the buildings soon. Rafael keys his radio. All units, remember, we want the old man alive. He knows where the money is. Don't shoot unless you have to. 3 voices acknowledge over the radio. 12 men total, all armed with AR-15s and enough ammunition to start a small war. Overkill for one old rancher. But their boss, Vicente Rojas, doesn't believe in taking chances. Not with $3 million on the line. The story goes like this. 15 years ago, a DEA money transport got hit on a highway 40 miles north of here. 7 agents dead, $3 million in cash gone. The DEA blamed the cartels blamed each other, and eventually everyone forgot about it. But Vicente never forgot. He spent years tracking rumors, following leads, bribing cops and squeezing informants. And every trail led here, to this ranch, to Earl Whitaker. I see it, Paco says, pointing ahead. The ranch buildings are dark shapes against the darker desert. A house, a barn, some corrals. No lights, no movement. Stop here, Rafael orders. Cut the engines. All 4 trucks roll to a stop about a quarter mile from the ranch. Rafael climbs out and raises binoculars to his eyes, scanning the property. Nothing. No lights, no vehicles except a couple of rusty pickups that look like they haven't run in years. No sign of the old man or anyone else. Too quiet. Ortiz, Rafael calls, and a thick-shouldered man with a scarred face jogs over. Take 3 men and circle around back. Give us 5 minutes, then move in from the north. We'll hit the front. Ortiz nods and gathers his team. Rafael watches them disappear into the darkness, then turns to his remaining 8 men. Remember, quiet until we're inside. If the old man runs, shoot his legs. Vicente wants him talking. The men check their weapons and start forward, moving in a loose line across the open ground. The wind is picking up, throwing dust in their faces, making visibility even worse. Rafael keeps his eyes on the ranch house, watching for any sign of movement. They cross the fence line without incident. One of the men uses wire cutters on the chain link, and they slip through single file. Still no reaction from the house. Rafael's unease grows. Where is he? They're 50 yards from the front door when the first explosion rips through the night. It comes from the back of the property. A massive fireball that shoots 50 feet into the air, followed immediately by screaming. Rafael spins around to see the barn fully engulfed in flames, and somewhere in that inferno, Ortiz and his men are dying. Contact rear, someone shouts into the radio, but the transmission cuts off mid-sentence. Rafael's men panic, some turning toward the fire, others aiming at the house. Hold positions, Rafael screams. Watch your sectors. But it's too late. The trap is sprung. The second explosion takes out 2 men on Rafael's left. A buried IED that showers them with shrapnel and fire. A third explosion, smaller, blows out the tires on one of their trucks. And then, from somewhere in the darkness, comes the crack of rifle fire. One of Rafael's men drops with a hole in his chest. Another spins and falls, clutching his throat. The shots are precise, methodical, coming from different angles. Rafael dives behind a water trough, screaming into his radio. We're under attack. Light it up. Light everything up. His men open fire blindly, spraying bullets into the darkness. Muzzle flashes strobe the night, and the sound is deafening. But they're shooting at shadows, at ghosts. The rifle fire continues, and one by one, Rafael's men fall. From his position 300 yards out, Earl Whitaker watches through his scope. He's prone on a small rise, the M4 steady against his shoulder, breathing slow and even. Each shot is a calculated decision: distance, wind, target selection. He's not wasting ammunition. Can't afford to. He squeezes the trigger. A man near the trucks drops. Adjust. Breathe. Fire. Another down. The cartel men are panicking now, bunching up, making themselves easier targets. Earl allows himself a small, grim smile. 20 years since his last firefight, and the skills are still there. Buried deep, but there. He shifts position, crawling 30 yards to his right before setting up again. The muzzle flash gives away your position, and staying still gets you killed. Old lessons learned in places whose names are still classified. Through his scope, he sees the one giving orders, probably the leader. The man is behind a water trough shouting into a radio. Earl puts the crosshairs on his chest, then hesitates. He needs one alive, someone to send a message back. Earl shifts his aim and fires. The bullet hits the radio in the man's hand, exploding it in a shower of sparks and plastic. The man screams and drops, clutching his hand. Earl's radio, an old military model on his belt, crackles with panic Spanish. He listens to them die, their voices cutting off one by one, until only silence remains. He waits 10 more minutes, perfectly still, watching for movement. Nothing. The barn has burned down to glowing embers. The ranch yard is littered with bodies. The surviving cartel member, the leader, is still behind the water trough, whimpering, cradling his ruined hand. Earl rises slowly, the M4 still ready, and starts walking toward the ranch. His boots crunch on the dry earth, the only sound in the sudden stillness. He's breathing hard now, adrenaline starting to fade, and his hands are shaking slightly. 20 years. He thought he was done with this. He approaches the water trough and looks down at Raphael, who stares up at him with wide, terrified eyes. "Please," Raphael gasps in English. "Please don't kill me." Earl looks at him for a long moment. Then he reaches down, grabs the man by his collar, and hauls him to his feet. "Who sent you?" Earl asks. His voice is rough, like gravel over stone.
Vicente, Rafael stammers. Vicente Rojas.
"From Nuevo Laredo. He said you have DA money. $3 million. Earl's expression doesn't change. "There is no money." "But he said." "There is no money," Earl repeats, harder this time. "Never was. You came here for nothing." Raphael's face crumples. We killed 4 men. Burned them. All for nothing. "More than 4, Earl says quietly, looking around at the bodies scattered across his property. He counts 11 total, including the ones who burned in the barn. "Go back to Vicente. Tell him Earl Whitaker died 20 years ago. Tell him to forget this place exists. You understand me?"
Rafael nods frantically.
"Good." Earl releases him and points toward the trucks. "Take one. Drive north. Don't stop. Don't come back. If I ever see you again, I'll finish what I started tonight." Raphael runs, stumbling and crying, clutching his mangled hand. Earl watches him climb into the least damaged truck and roar off into the darkness, red taillights fading like dying embers. Then Earl is alone. He stands in the center of his ruined ranch, surrounded by dead men and burning buildings, and feels something cold settle in his chest. This isn't over. Vicente Rojas didn't get where he is by accepting failure. He'll send more men, better men, and next time they won't make the same mistakes. Earl walks back to his house. The front door hangs open, swinging in the wind. Inside, everything is as he left it, the table, the chairs, the cot. The weapons laid out like he knew he'd need them. He starts packing. 20 years ago. To understand Earl Whitaker, you have to go back. Back to when he wasn't Earl Whitaker at all, but Staff Sergeant Daniel Earl Morrison, Delta Force operator, assigned to a classified unit that officially didn't exist. He was 32 years old, at the peak of his career, with 16 confirmed deployments across 3 continents and a service record that was mostly redacted. They called his unit the Cleaners. Their job was simple. Go places the regular military couldn't go, fix problems the government couldn't acknowledge, and disappear before anyone knew they were there. Assassinations, extractions, deep reconnaissance in hostile territory. The kind of work that keeps presidents awake at night and never makes the news. Daniel Morrison was good at it. Maybe too good. The mission that ended his career started in Colombia. Intelligence said a rogue CIA officer named Marcus Webb had gone dark, taking with him a list of every American asset in South America. Names, addresses, families, the whole network. If that list reached the cartels or a foreign power, dozens of people would die, and American operations across the continent would collapse. The order came down: find Webb, recover the list, eliminate all witnesses. Morrison's team, 6 men, handpicked the best of the best, inserted via helicopter into the jungle outside Medellin. The operation was supposed to take 48 hours. Get in, locate Webb, neutralize him, exfiltrate. It took 72 hours, and when it was over, Morrison was the only one who walked out. What happened in that jungle remains classified. The official report says Morrison's team encountered unexpected resistance, suffered casualties, and Morrison made the difficult decision to complete the mission alone rather than abort. He found Webb, recovered the list, and eliminated all hostile contacts before reaching the extraction point. The unofficial truth is darker. Webb wasn't working alone. He'd partnered with a DEA agent named Richard Colton, and together they'd planned to sell the asset list to the highest bidder: cartels, Russian intelligence, Chinese military, whoever paid best. But the deal went bad. The buyers, a Colombian cartel, decided to kill Webb and Colton and take the list for free. When Morrison arrived, he found Webb and Colton already dead, executed by the cartel. The list was gone, and Morrison's team walked straight into an ambush. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and cut off from support. Morrison's commanding officer, Captain James Sullivan, ordered a full retreat. But Morrison knew that if they left without the list, the mission was a failure and people would die. So Morrison made a choice. He told Sullivan to take the wounded and fall back to the extraction point. Morrison would stay behind, find the list, and join them later. Sullivan argued, but Morrison pulled rank and issued a direct order. Sullivan had no choice but to obey. Morrison never showed up at the extraction point. For 3 days, he hunted through the jungle alone, tracking the cartel soldiers who'd taken the list. He found their camp, 40 men strong, deep in territory where no American should survive. And somehow, the details are still unclear. Morrison infiltrated the camp, recovered the list, and fought his way out. By the time he reached friendly territory, he'd killed 23 men, lost 40 pounds, and contracted a fever that nearly killed him. The list was intact, the mission was a success, but Morrison's team was gone. All 5 men, including Sullivan, had been killed when the cartels sent a second force to the extraction point. The military gave Morrison a choice: accept a medal, a promotion, and a new assignment, or retire with honors and never speak about what happened.
Morrison chose retirement.
But retirement wasn't enough. Too many people knew his face, his real name, his history. He'd made enemies in Colombia, powerful enemies who didn't care about borders or laws. They wanted revenge, and they had the resources to get it. So the military did something they rarely do. They gave Morrison a new life. New name, new identity, new past. Earl Whitaker, born in Texas, no criminal record, no military service, just a quiet rancher looking to disappear into the desert. They set him up with the ranch in Mexico, technically illegal for an American to own, but the right bribes made anything possible. 300 acres of nothing, far from civilization, where a man could live in peace and never see another soul. For 20 years, it worked. Morrison became Earl. He grew a beard, let his hair go gray, worked the land, and tried to forget the feel of a rifle in his hands. He didn't make friends, didn't go to town unless he had to, lived off the grid, off the books, off the map. And he waited for the past to catch up. The message: Rafael Guzman drives for 6 hours straight before he finally stops. His hand is agony. 3 fingers shattered, the palm burned where the bullet hit his radio. He's wrapped it in a shirt, but blood is still seeping through, and he's pretty sure he's going to pass out if he doesn't get help soon. He pulls into a gas station on the outskirts of Monterrey, stumbles inside, and uses the last of his cash to buy water and bandages. The attendant takes one look at his hand and reaches for the phone, but Rafael pulls his pistol with his good hand and shakes his head. "No police," he says. "Just bandages." The attendant nods slowly and hands them over. Rafael wraps his hand as best he can, drinks half the water in one go, and heads back to the truck. He needs to get to Vicente, needs to explain what happened, needs to... His phone rings. Rafael stares at it, terrified. It's Vicente's number. Of course it is. Vicente always knows.
Rafael answers. Jefe.
Where are you? Vicente's voice is cold, controlled, dangerous.
Monterrey.
We had problems, Chief. The ranch. I know about the ranch. I know you lost 11 men. I know you ran like a coward. What I don't know is why you're still breathing. Rafael's blood runs cold. The old man, he let me go. To give you a message. A pause. Then, what message? He said Earl Whitaker died 20 years ago. He said to forget the ranch exists. Chief, I think he was military. Special forces, maybe. The way he moved. The way he fought. I don't care what he was. Vicente interrupts. I care that you failed me. Come home, Rafael. We'll discuss your future. The line goes dead. Rafael sits in the truck, staring at the phone. Going back to Vicente means death. Everyone knows what happens to men who fail Vicente Rojas. But not going back means something worse. It means becoming a hunted man, always looking over his shoulder, waiting for the bullet. Rafael makes his decision. He throws the phone out the window, starts the truck, and drives north, toward the border, toward America. He has cousins in Texas. Maybe they'll hide him. Maybe he can disappear. He drives for another hour before he notices the headlights behind him.
Vicente Rojas.
Vicente Rojas is 53 years old, 5'6", and worth approximately $400 million. He runs one of the most powerful cartels in northern Mexico, controlling drug routes, human trafficking, and protection rackets across 5 states. He's been shot 3 times, survived 2 assassination attempts, and once personally executed a rival cartel leader with a chainsaw. But Vicente considers himself a businessman. Violence is a tool, not a pleasure. He doesn't kill for sport, he kills for profit. And he doesn't tolerate failure. He sits in his office in Nuevo Laredo, a fortified compound surrounded by walls, guards, and enough surveillance equipment to run a small government, and listens to the reports coming in from the ranch. 11 men dead. Rafael missing, presumed running. The target, Earl Whitaker, still alive. Vicente lights a cigar and considers his options. The smart play is to walk away. Cut his losses. Forget the $3 million. Focus on more profitable ventures. The ranch was a long shot anyway, based on rumors and speculation. Maybe there never was any DEA money. Maybe Earl Whitaker is just a crazy old man who got lucky. But Vicente didn't build an empire by walking away. And something about this bothers him. A rancher doesn't kill 11 armed men with military precision unless he's more than just a rancher. Which means the rumors might be true. Which means the money might be real. Vicente picks up his phone and makes a call. Hector, he says when the line connects. I have a job for you. On the other end, Hector Cruz, Vicente's head of security and most dangerous enforcer, listens quietly. Hector is 38, former Mexican Special Forces, dishonorably discharged for excessive violence during interrogation. He has 62 confirmed kills and enjoys his work far more than Vicente approves of. But Hector is effective. There's a rancher north of Monterrey, Vicente explains. American, probably ex-military. He killed 11 of my men last night. I want to know everything about him, real name, service record, where he came from, who he talks to. And then I want him dead. How dead? Hector asks. There's anticipation in his voice. Very dead, Vicente says. But not immediately. First, make him tell you where the money is. Then kill him slowly. I want people to hear about this. I want them to know what happens when someone crosses me. It will be done, Hector says and hangs up. Vicente leans back in his chair, satisfied. The money is secondary now. This has become about respect. About reputation. About making sure every 2-bit criminal in Mexico knows that Vicente Rojas doesn't forgive, doesn't forget, and always gets his revenge. He takes a long drag on his cigar and smiles. Earl's preparations. Earl knows he has maybe 48 hours before they come again. This time they'll send professionals. Ex-military. Experienced killers who won't make the same mistakes as Rafael's crew. They'll come in daylight with drones and surveillance, and they'll burn him out if they have to. The ranch is compromised. He can't stay. Earl spends the rest of the night gathering what he can carry: weapons, ammunition, cash, water, medical supplies. He loads everything into an old Jeep Cherokee. He keeps hidden in a cave 2 miles from the ranch. One of several bolt holes he's prepared over the years, just in case. The sun is rising when he finishes. The ranch looks even worse in daylight. Bodies everywhere. The barn a smoking ruin, bullet holes stitching patterns across the house walls. Earl considers burning it all, erasing the evidence, but decides against it. Let them see what happened here. Let them know what they're dealing with. He climbs into the Jeep and drives north, into the desert, toward a place he swore he'd never return to. The drive takes 6 hours, following dirt roads and game trails that don't appear on any map. Earl navigates from memory, recognizing landmarks. A twisted Joshua tree, a rock formation that looks like a bird, a dry creek bed that only flows during spring rains. Finally, he reaches his destination. A small canyon carved into red sandstone, invisible from the main road, with a cave at the far end. Earl parks the Jeep inside the cave and starts unloading. This was supposed to be his final fallback position, the place he'd retreat to if everything went wrong. He's stored supplies here over the years: food, water, weapons, even a satellite phone that connects to a military frequency that should still be active. Should be. Earl digs the phone out of its waterproof case and powers it on. The battery is good. He's been replacing it every 6 months, but the signal is weak. He climbs to the canyon rim and extends the antenna, pointing it south. After 5 minutes, the phone chirps. Connection established. Earl takes a deep breath and dials a number he memorized 20 years ago, one he was told to use only in absolute emergencies. The number rings 3 times before someone picks up. Authentication code, a man's voice says.
No greeting, no introduction.
Earl hesitates. Does the code still work? Is the system even still active? He clears his throat and speaks. Cleaner 7. Authentication. Blue Monarch Hotel. A pause. Earl hears typing in the background. Cleaner 7. The voice says slowly. That designation was retired in 2005. This frequency is no longer monitored. Please disconnect. Wait, Earl says quickly. My real name is Daniel Earl Morrison. Service number. I know who you are, Sergeant Morrison. The voice interrupts. Your file is flagged. You were declared killed in action in Colombia in 2005. As far as the United States military is concerned, you don't exist. I know that, Earl says, frustration bleeding into his voice. But I'm calling because I need help. There's a Mexican cartel coming after me. They think I have DEA money from a hijacking 15 years ago. I need extraction or backup, or we don't provide those services to civilians. I'm not a civilian, You're a dead man, Sergeant. Legally. Officially. We gave you a new life, and in return you agreed to never contact us again. That was the deal. Earl closes his eyes. He knew this was a long shot, but hearing it confirmed still hurts. He's been cut loose. Disavowed. There's no help coming. So that's it. Earl says quietly. 20 years of service. And you're just going to let me die? Another pause. When the voice speaks again, there's something that might be sympathy in it. Or maybe just pity.
I'm sorry, Sergeant.
I truly am. But those are the rules. You knew the risks when you took the deal. Good luck. The line goes dead. Earl stands on the canyon rim, looking out at the endless desert, and feels very alone. He's 52 years old, has killed more men than he can remember, and the only people who could help him have officially declared him dead. So be it. If he's going to die, he'll die on his terms. Not running, not hiding. He'll make them work for it. Make them bleed for every inch. And maybe, just maybe, he'll take enough of them with him that Vicente Rojas thinks twice about pursuing vendettas. Earl walks back to the cave and starts preparing his defenses. Hector's hunt. Hector Cruz arrives at the ranch 3 days later, driving a convoy of 3 SUVs and bringing 12 men. These aren't street soldiers like Rafael's crew. These are professionals. Former military, former police, men who've done this work for years and survived. Hector steps out of the lead vehicle and surveys the ranch with a critical eye. The bodies are still here. Animals have been at them and the smell is incredible. But Hector isn't bothered. He's seen worse. Spread out, he orders. I want a full sweep. Look for anything: shell casings, blood trails, tire tracks. Anything that tells us where he went. His men fan out across the property. Hector walks to where the barn used to be, studying the blast pattern. Military-grade explosives, probably claymore mines, placed strategically to channel attackers into a kill zone. Smart. He moves to the water trough where Raphael hid and finds the shattered remains of the radio. A single shot, precisely placed. Hector picks up a fragment and examines it. The round hit dead center. Maximum damage with minimum risk to Raphael. This wasn't someone trying to kill. This was someone sending a message. Whoever Earl Whitaker is, he's had training. Real training. One of Hector's men jogs over, holding something. Found this in the house, Chief. It's a photograph, old and faded. Hector takes it and studies the image. 5 men in military gear, faces blurred but visible, standing in front of a helicopter. The photo is dated 2004, and there's a location stamp. Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Delta Force, Hector murmurs. Fort Bragg was home to the Army's elite special operations units. Which means Earl Whitaker is almost certainly ex-Delta. Which means this job just got a lot more interesting. Hector pulls out his phone and makes a call.
Vicente.
I'm at the ranch. You were right, he's military. Special forces, probably Delta. I found evidence of professional explosives, precision shooting, tactical planning. This isn't a lucky rancher. This is a trained operator. Can you find him?
Vicente asks.
Hector looks around at the desert stretching in every direction. Thousands of square miles of nothing. But he's tracked men before, through jungles and mountains and urban sprawl. The desert is just another environment. I'll find him, Hector says. Give me a week. You have 3 days. Vicente replies and hangs up. Hector smiles. 3 days. That's more than enough. The hunt begins. Tracking Earl proves more difficult than Hector expected. The jeep trail leads north for about 20 miles before hitting Hardpan Rock. And after that, there are no tire tracks. Earl has either gone to ground somewhere close or continued on foot, and Hector has no way of knowing which. He splits his men into 3 teams and sends them out in different directions, searching for any sign. Disturbed ground, abandoned campsites, purchases at remote towns. For 2 days, they find nothing. It's like Earl Whitaker vanished into thin air. On the 3rd day, one of Hector's teams gets lucky. A clerk at a tiny trading post 40 miles north of the ranch remembers seeing an older American man buying supplies, water, canned food, batteries. He paid cash, didn't give a name, and drove off heading northwest. The clerk remembered him because the man's eyes were scary, like a wolf. Hector studies a map. Northwest from here leads deeper into the desert, toward a region of canyons and mesas where few people go. Perfect place to hide. Perfect place for an ambush. We're close, Hector tells his men. Spread out in a line half a mile between.
Vehicles.
Stay on radio. If you see anything, tire tracks, footprints, smoke, you call it in immediately. And stay alert. This man is dangerous. They drive into the canyon lands, moving slowly, searching. The landscape is spectacular. Red rock formations, deep gorges, scattered vegetation. Also completely inhospitable to human life. No water, no shade. Temperatures that swing from freezing at night to lethal during the day. Hector can't imagine choosing to hide here. But then, he's not a Delta operator running for his life. On the afternoon of the 4th day, they find the jeep. It's parked in a narrow canyon, partially concealed by brush. But one of Hector's men spots the sun reflecting off the windshield. Hector orders everyone to stop and approaches on foot, weapon ready. The jeep is empty. No sign of Earl. But there are supplies inside: food, water, ammunition. Which means Earl is nearby, probably holed up somewhere in the canyon. Hector radios his men. We found his vehicle. He's in this canyon somewhere. Set up a perimeter, nobody in or out. Then we go hunting. His men move into position, blocking the canyon entrances. 12 men against 1. Even if Earl is Delta, even if he's good, the odds are overwhelmingly in Hector's favor. But as Hector moves deeper into the canyon, something nags at him. This feels too easy. The jeep was too exposed, too easy to spot. Almost like the first shot comes from above. One of Hector's men drops with a bullet through his skull. The others scatter, taking cover behind rocks, weapons up. But there's no follow-up shot. Just silence. Where did that come from? Someone shouts. Hector scans the canyon walls. They rise 60 feet on both sides, irregular and crumbling. Dozens of hiding spots. Hundreds. And somewhere up there, Earl Whitaker is watching. Stay in cover, Hector orders. Don't give him a target. But staying in cover means staying pinned. And Earl knows it. The canyon battle. Earl lies prone on a ledge 40 feet up the canyon wall, watching Hector's men scramble for cover. He's been expecting them for days, preparing the canyon, setting traps, choosing firing positions. This is his ground now, his rules. He could have killed more than one, could have dropped 3 or 4 before they found cover. But he needs to conserve ammunition, stretch this out, make them afraid. Fear is a weapon, and right now Earl needs every weapon he can get. Through his scope, he watches a man in tactical gear directing the others, the leader, probably. The one Vicente sent. Earl puts the crosshairs on his head, then shifts away. Not yet. Kill the leader too early, and the others might panic and run. Better to bleed them first, wear them down. Earl crawls backward, away from the ledge, and moves to a new position. Never stay in one place after you shoot. Basic sniper doctrine, beaten into him over months of training 20+ years ago. He reaches a cleft in the rocks 50 yards from his first position and settles in. From here, he has a clear view of where Hector's men are hiding. One is exposed, just his boot showing behind a boulder. Earl takes aim and fires. The bullet hits the man's ankle, shattering bone. The man screams and jerks back into cover. Earl doesn't try for a follow-up. He's already moving again. This is how it's going to go. Hit and move. Hit and move. Make them afraid to advance, afraid to stay, afraid of every shadow. Below, Hector curses as he watches another of his men go down. This isn't working. They're sitting targets, and Earl has all the advantages: high ground, concealment, knowledge of the terrain. We need to get up there, Hector says to his second-in-command, a former federale named Luis. Find a way up those walls. We take the high ground, we take away his advantage. Luis nods and gathers 3 men. They start climbing, using cracks and outcroppings, weapons slung across their backs. The slow-going, dangerous and exposed, but they're making progress. Halfway up, one of them finds a handhold and pulls himself higher. Earl watches through his scope from a different angle. He could shoot them while they climb, easy targets clinging to rock, unable to dodge. But that would mean revealing his position, and he's not ready for that yet. Instead, he reaches for one of the grenades on his belt. He pulls the pin, counts to 3, and tosses it in a high arc. The grenade bounces off the canyon wall above the climbers and tumbles down. The explosion is devastating in the confined space. Rock fragments become shrapnel, and all 4 men fall, screaming, bodies broken on the canyon floor below. Hector watches his men die and feels something he hasn't felt in years. Fear. Not panic, not terror, but a cold, rational understanding that he's fighting someone better than him. Someone who's turning this canyon into a killing ground. Fall back, Hector orders. Back to the vehicles. We regroup and... Another explosion, this one behind them. Earl has mined the exit. Black. Doesn't change. And you believed him? I believe he's ex-special forces, Hector says. I believe he's dangerous. And I believe that sending more men will just result in more deaths. So you're telling me to quit? I'm telling you the cost may not be worth the reward. Vicente stands and walks to the window. His compound spreads below. Guards, vehicles, warehouses full of drugs and cash. An empire built on fear and violence. I didn't build this by quitting, Vicente says. I built it by being more ruthless than everyone else. more willing to do whatever it takes. If I let one old American rancher defy me, what message does that send? It sends the message that you're smart enough to know when to walk away, Hector says carefully. Vicente turns and looks at him. For a long moment, neither man speaks. Get out, Vicente says finally. Hector hesitates.
Jefe.
Get out. You're dismissed. Take a week off. Go see your family. When you come back, we'll discuss your next assignment. Hector nods and leaves, not sure if he's been spared or just given a temporary reprieve. After he's gone, Vicente returns to his desk and opens a locked drawer. Inside is a file folder, thick with documents. He spreads them across his desk. Police reports, intelligence briefings, photographs. The DA money hijacking 15 years ago. 7 dead agents, $3 million vanished. The official investigation went nowhere, but Vicente's private investigators dug deeper. They found witnesses who mentioned an American ranch. They found bank records showing cash purchases of the property. They found a name, Earl Whitaker. But there was something else. Something the investigators couldn't explain. Before Earl Whitaker bought the ranch, there was another name on the deed. A corporation that traced back to a CIA front company. The same front company that had been linked to black operations in Colombia, Venezuela, and half a dozen other places. Earl Whitaker wasn't just a rancher. He was military intelligence. Probably CIA, maybe something even more classified. Which meant the money might be real. Might be a stash hidden by American intelligence for covert operations. $3 million was pocket change to the CIA. Or it might be nothing. Might be exactly what Earl claimed, a ghost story. Vicente closes the file and makes a decision. He's not going to quit, but he's not going to waste more men either. If Earl Whitaker is ex-CIA, ex-Special Forces, then conventional attacks won't work. He needs something different, something Earl won't see coming. Vicente picks up his phone and makes a call to a number in Texas. It rings 4 times before someone answers. Agent Reyes, a woman's voice says. How can I help you?
Vicente Smiles.
I have information about Earl Whitaker, the man who's been living in Mexico under false pretenses. I think the DEA might be very interested in what I have to say. The betrayal. 2 weeks pass. Earl stays in the canyon, living off his supplies, monitoring radio frequencies for any sign of cartel activity. He hears nothing. No search parties, no reconnaissance, no chatter about American ranchers or desert hideouts. Maybe Vicente got the message. Maybe Hector convinced him the cost wasn't worth it. Or maybe they're planning something worse. Earl can't stay in the canyon forever. His supplies are running low, and the desert heat is brutal during the day. He needs to move, find somewhere more sustainable, maybe even cross the border into America. But crossing the border means using his real identity, and Daniel Earl Morrison died 20 years ago. His fingerprints are in the system as deceased. His social security number is canceled. He has no passport, no driver's license, nothing that proves he exists. He could try to slip across illegally, but the border is heavily monitored now. Drones, sensors, patrols. And if he gets caught, there will be questions he can't answer. Earl is considering his options when he hears the helicopter. It comes in low and fast, appearing over the canyon rim without warning. Earl grabs his rifle and sprints for cover, but the helicopter doesn't open fire. Instead, it circles once and then lands in the canyon mouth, rotors still spinning. 3 figures emerge. 2 are wearing tactical gear and carrying M4 rifles. The third is a woman in a suit holding a briefcase. Earl keeps his rifle trained on them from behind a boulder. The woman walks forward alone, hands visible, non-threatening. Daniel Morrison, she shouts over the helicopter noise. My name is Special Agent Sarah Reyes. DEA. I'm here to talk. Don't shoot. Earl doesn't lower his weapon. How do you know that name? Because Vicente Rojas told me. Sarah shouts back. He made a deal. Information about you in exchange for immunity on several charges. He claims you have $3 million in stolen DEA money. Do you? Earl's mind races. Vicente didn't send more men. He sent the law. Brilliant. Let the American government. Up. Why should I trust you won't arrest me the moment I get on that helicopter? They lock eyes, two professionals sizing each other up, trying to read the truth beneath the surface. Fine, Sarah says finally.
El mirador, temaro, non.
But if you run, if you disappear, I will hunt you down personally. Understood. Understood. Sarah turns and walks back to the helicopter. Earl watches them take off, rotors kicking up dust, until they're just a speck in the sky. Then he starts packing. He has less than 24 hours to figure out if he just made the biggest mistake of his life. The truth about Colombia. Earl crosses the border that night using old smuggling routes he learned from locals over the years. He pays a coyote $2,000 cash to guide him through the desert and across the Rio Grande. Then hitches a ride to San Antonio with a truck driver who doesn't ask questions. By dawn, he's in the city, clean-shaven for the first time in 20 years, wearing clothes he bought from a thrift store. He looks like a different person, older, worn, but respectable. Just another middle-aged man in a city full of them. He arrives at El Mirador 2 hours early and spends the time watching the restaurant from across the street. It's a popular place, busy with lunch crowds, tourists taking photos. Good. Hard for Vicente's men to start a shootout in front of witnesses. At noon exactly, Sarah Reyes arrives with one other agent. An older man in a suit, gray-haired, walking with the confidence of someone who's been in law enforcement for decades. They don't bring backup, don't try to surround the place. Just walk in and take a booth by the window. Earl waits another 5 minutes, watching for signs of a trap. When he's satisfied, he crosses the street and enters the restaurant. Sarah sees him immediately. Mr. Morrison, you came. Earl, he corrects, sliding into the booth across from them. I've been Earl for 20 years. Let's keep it that way. The older agent extends his hand. Supervisory Agent Mark Chun, DEA. Agent Reyes has filled me in on the situation. Before we begin, I need to make something clear. Anything you tell us can and will be used in a legal proceeding. You're not under arrest, but you're also not protected by any immunity agreement. Are you willing to proceed? Earl nods. Ask your questions. Sarah pulls out a digital recorder and sets it on the table. Let's start with the DEA hijacking 15 years ago. $3 million, 7 dead agents. What do you know about it? Nothing, Earl says. I was already retired by then, living at the ranch. First I heard about it was when Vicente's men showed up claiming I had the money. So you deny any involvement? Completely. Then why does Vicente think you have it? Because someone lied to him, or someone made a mistake. I don't know which. Chun leans forward. Here's the problem with that. Vicente Rojas is a careful man. He doesn't chase ghost stories without good reason. He told us he has evidence, financial records, witness statements, linking you to the hijacking. Unless you can explain that evidence, we have to take his claims seriously. Earl feels anger rising. So you believe a cartel boss over me? A man who's murdered hundreds of people. We believe evidence, Chun says calmly. And right now, all the evidence points to you. Then look harder. Check Vicente's sources. Someone fed him a story, and he believed it because he wanted to believe it. Sarah makes a note. Let's move on. Tell us about Daniel Earl Morrison. About Colombia. This is the real question Earl knows. The one he's been dreading. What do you want to know? Everything. Your mission, your team, what happened to them. Earl closes his eyes. He hasn't talked about Colombia in 20 years. Hasn't even let himself think about it. But now, sitting in this restaurant with 2 DEA agents and a digital recorder, he has no choice. My team was called the Cleaners, Earl begins. 6 men, Delta Force, black operations. Our job was to handle problems the government couldn't acknowledge. Assassinations, mostly. Some extractions. We worked all over South America. Assassinations, Chun repeats. You killed people. I followed orders. We all did. How many? Earl opens his eyes and looks at Chun. More than I can count. Sarah writes something down. Tell us about the mission in Colombia. The one that ended your career. So Earl tells them. The rogue CIA officer, the asset list, the ambush in the jungle. His team's deaths, his decision to complete the mission alone, the 3 days hunting through hostile territory. I recovered the list, Earl finishes. I did my job, but my team was dead, and I couldn't live with that. So I took the military's offer: retirement, new identity, disappearance. They gave me the ranch, set me up as Earl Whitaker, and told me never to contact them again. And you just accepted that? Sarah asks. Your team died, and you walked away? What else could I do? Earl's voice is harder now. They were already gone. I couldn't bring them back. All I could do was complete the mission and try to forget. Except you didn't forget, Chun says quietly. You just buried it. Earl doesn't answer. Chun and Sarah exchange a look. Then Chun reaches into his briefcase and pulls out a file folder. He slides it across the table to Earl. We pulled the classified files on your Columbia mission, Chun says. Or tried to. Most of it's still redacted. But there are some interesting details that aren't in the official report. Earl opens the folder. Inside are documents, photographs, incident reports. Most of it is blacked out, but he can see dates, locations, names. And then he sees something that makes his blood run cold. A photograph of Captain James Sullivan, his commanding officer. The man who ordered the retreat while Earl stayed behind. The man who died at the extraction point. Except in this photograph, Sullivan isn't dead. He's standing in an office building, wearing civilian clothes, shaking hands with a man in a suit. The photo is dated 6 months after the Columbia mission. What is this? Earl whispers. That's what we want to know, Sarah says. Because according to official records, Captain Sullivan died in Columbia. But we have evidence he's alive. Living in Virginia under an assumed name, working as a consultant for defense contractors. Earl stares at the photograph, his mind reeling. Sullivan is alive. Which means everything Earl believed about that mission, everything he's carried for 20 years, might be a lie. There's more, Chin says. He pulls out another document. The asset list you recovered. We checked with CIA. They claim it was never real. That the whole mission was a setup. A setup for what? We don't know. The details are still classified at the highest level. But we think someone in American intelligence wanted to put you and your team in a position where you'd be declared dead. A way to create deniable assets for future operations. Earl feels sick. You're saying they sacrificed my team deliberately? We're saying it's a possibility. And if it's true, then you weren't retired, you were cut loose. Made to disappear so they could use you later if needed. Use me for what? That's what we're trying to figure out. Earl pushes the folder away, suddenly unable to look at it. 20 years of guilt, 20 years of nightmares about his team dying while he completed the mission. And it was all a lie. They were betrayed from the beginning. Why are you telling me this? Earl asks quietly. Because we need your help, Sarah says. If what we suspect is true, then there's a black operation inside American intelligence that's been running for over 2 decades. Using soldiers like you, manipulating them, discarding them. We want to shut it down. And you think I can help? You're living proof it exists. Your survival, your new identity, the way they erased you, all of it points to something bigger. Something that's still active. Earl looks at them both, these 2 federal agents asking him to betray the very people who gave him a second life. Asking him to drag himself back into a world he spent 20 years trying to escape. What about Vicente? Earl asks. If I help you, he'll still be coming after me. We'll offer him a deal, Chin says. Drop the vendetta against you, and we'll look the other way on some of his operations. He's a businessman, he'll take it. You're sure about that?
No.
But it's the best we can offer. Earl sits back in the booth, mind racing. He could walk away right now, disappear back into the desert, keep running, keep hiding. Or he could take this chance to finally learn the truth about what happened to his team. If I help you, Earl says slowly, I want full immunity. For everything, Columbia, the assassinations, living under a false identity. All of it. In writing. We can arrange that. And I want the truth. All of it. Every file, every report. Every piece of information about what happened to my team. Chen nods. We'll give you whatever we can. Then I'm in. Sarah switches off the recorder. Welcome back to the world, Sergeant Morrison. Vicente's decision. Back in Nuevo Laredo, Vicente Rojas receives a phone call. It's done, Agent Chun says on the other end. Morrison has agreed to cooperate. In exchange, we're asking you to drop your pursuit of him. Vicente smiles. And why would I do that? Because if you don't, we'll dedicate every resource we have to destroying your organization. We'll freeze your assets, arrest your lieutenants, burn your supply lines. We'll make it our mission to put you in prison for the rest of your life. You threaten me? I'm offering you a deal. Walk away from Morrison, and we leave you alone. It's that simple. Vicente considers this. The truth is, he's already tired of chasing Earl Whitaker. The man has cost him 20 men, countless resources, and damaged his reputation. The smart move is to cut his losses and focus on business. But Vicente didn't build an empire by being smart. He built it by being ruthless. Tell me something, Agent Chun, Vicente says. This Morrison, this Whitaker, whatever his name is, how important is he to you? Important enough. Important enough that you'd make a deal with me? A criminal? A murderer? As your agents like to say. A pause. Yes. Vicente laughs. Then you've already lost. Because if you're willing to compromise your principles for one man, then you're just like me. Just another player in a dirty game. Is that a no? That's a, I'll think about it. Give me 24 hours. Vicente hangs up and lights a cigar. He walks to his window and looks out at his compound, his empire, everything he's built. The truth is, he doesn't care about the money anymore. Doesn't even care about revenge. What he cares about is the principle. If he lets one old American rancher defy him and walk away, every two-bit gangster in Mexico will think Vicente Rojas has gone soft. He can't allow that. But he also can't keep throwing men at a target who keeps killing them. He needs a different approach. Something final. Vicente picks up his phone and makes one more call. This time to a number in Houston. It rings twice before a gruff voice answers. This is Maddox. Mr. Maddox, Vicente says. I have a job for you. A difficult one. Are you interested? On the other end, Jack Maddox, former Marine sniper, current mercenary for hire with 18 confirmed kills. Smiles. Always, Maddox says. Tell me about the target. The safe house. The DEA sets Earl up in a safe house outside San Antonio. A suburban home that looks like every other house on the block, but has reinforced doors, bulletproof windows, and enough surveillance equipment to monitor a small army. Earl spends his first week there going through files with Sarah and Chun, piecing together the truth about Colombia. What they learn is worse than Earl imagined. The mission was a setup from the beginning. There was no rogue CIA officer, no stolen asset list. It was all fabricated to create a scenario where Earl's team would be declared Kia. Their bodies never recovered, perfect candidates for a ghost program called Lazarus. The program's purpose: create deniable operators who officially don't exist. Soldiers who could be sent on missions too sensitive even for normal black operations. Men who'd already died once and could die again without anyone asking questions. But the program needed a cover story. Needed deaths that looked legitimate. So they sent Earl's team into Colombia knowing they'd be ambushed. Knowing most of them would die. Earl survived because he was better than they expected. And instead of trying to bring him into Lazarus, they gave him a new life and told him to disappear. Insurance, maybe. Or maybe they just didn't know what else to do with him. How many others? Earl asks, staring at the files spread across the kitchen table. We don't know, Sarah admits. The program was shut down officially in 2008, but we have evidence it continued under different names. Could be dozens of operators out there, living under false identities, waiting for orders that may never come. And Sullivan? Still alive, still working as a contractor. We've requested interviews, but he's protected by some very powerful people. It might take months to get access to him. Earl stands and walks to the window, looking out at the quiet suburban street. Somewhere out there, His former commanding officer is living a comfortable life while Earl spent 20 years in the desert, haunted by guilt. I want to talk to him, Earl says. That's not possible right now. Make it possible. Chun shakes his head. It's too dangerous. If Sullivan is part of a larger operation, confronting him could compromise the investigation. I don't care about the investigation. I care about the truth. The truth is what we're finding in these files. No, Earl says quietly. The truth is why. Why they sacrificed my team. Why they let me live. Why any of this happened. And Sullivan is the only one who can tell me. Sarah and Chun exchange a look. Even if we could arrange it, Sarah says carefully. What would you do? He's a civilian now. You can't just. I'm not going to kill him, Earl interrupts. I just want answers. And if he doesn't give them? Earl doesn't answer, because he honestly doesn't know. Jack Maddox. Jack Maddox arrives in San Antonio 3 days later. He's 50 years old, lean and weathered, with the cold eyes of a man who's killed for money and doesn't lose sleep over it. Vicente has provided him with everything. Earl's current location, daily routine, DEA protection schedule. Maddox studies the information carefully, planning his approach. A safe house with bulletproof windows and armed guards isn't ideal, but it's not impossible. Maddox has worked harder targets. The key is patience. Wait for Earl to make a mistake, to leave the house, to give him an opening. Maddox rents an apartment 3 blocks from the safe house and sets up his equipment. A Barrett M82 sniper rifle. Effective range over a mile. Capable of punching through light armor. He won't get close. Doesn't need to. One shot from distance and Earl Whitaker becomes a memory. He spends 2 days watching the house, learning the patterns. 2 DEA agents on duty at all times, rotating every 12 hours. Armored SUV in the driveway. Earl stays inside, barely even coming to the windows. Smart, paranoid, good survival instincts. But everyone makes mistakes eventually. On the 3rd day, Maddox gets his chance. Earl comes out of the house for the first time, walking to the mailbox at the end of the driveway. It's only 20 feet, only 30 seconds of exposure, but that's all Maddox needs. He's already in position on a rooftop 6 blocks away. The Barrett set up and zeroed. He watches through the scope as Earl walks down the driveway, moving slowly, looking around. Maddox puts the crosshairs on Earl's chest and starts his breathing rhythm. For counts in, hold, for counts out. His finger tightens on the trigger, and then Earl stops, looks directly at the building where Maddox is positioned. For a frozen moment, their eyes meet across 600 yards of distance. Earl can't possibly see him. Maddox is too far away, too well concealed. But somehow, some primal instinct, Earl knows. Earl dives sideways just as Maddox fires. The .50 caliber round screams across the distance and punches through the mailbox where Earl was standing a split second earlier. The DA agents react instantly, weapons drawn, dragging Earl back toward the house. Maddox curses and starts breaking down his rifle. The shot was perfect and Earl moved at the exact wrong moment. Luck or skill doesn't matter. He's blown his chance. He's packing up when he hears footsteps on the stairs behind him. Maddox spins, reaching for his sidearm, but freezes when he sees the figure standing in the doorway. It's Earl Whitaker. Somehow, impossibly, he's already here. How? Maddox starts. Earl shoots him twice in the chest. Maddox falls, gasping, the Barrett clattering beside him. Earl walks over and kicks away Maddox's weapon, then kneels beside him. Who sent you? Earl asks. Maddox coughs blood.
Vicente. Rojas.
How much? 200,000. Earl nods slowly. Tell Vicente I'm done running. If he wants me dead, he'll have to do it himself. Maddox tries to speak again, but his eyes glaze over. Earl closes them and stands. The DEA agents will find Maddox's body soon enough. They'll have questions. But Earl has answers now and a plan. He climbs down from the rooftop through a fire escape, moving quickly through back alleys until he's blocks away from the safe house. Sarah and Chun will be furious when they realize he's gone. But this is something he has to do alone. Earl makes his way to a storage unit he rented under a different name, one of many contingencies he set up years ago. Inside is everything he needs: cash, weapons, fake IDs, a motorcycle. He loads a backpack with essentials and rides north, toward the one place he swore he'd never return to. Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where it all began. The ride takes 3 days. Earl stops only for gas and food, sleeping in cheap motels off the highway, always watching his back. By the time he reaches North Carolina, he's exhausted but focused. He has one goal: find James Sullivan and get the truth. Sullivan's address came from the DEA files, a comfortable house in a gated community outside Fayetteville. Earl watches it for 2 days, learning Sullivan's routine. The man lives alone, drives a BMW, goes to work at a defense contractor's office every morning at 8. On the third night, Earl breaks in. Sullivan comes home to find Earl sitting in his living room, a pistol resting on his knee. Sullivan freezes in the doorway, his face going pale. "Hello, Captain," Earl says quietly. "We need to talk." Sullivan's hand moves toward his jacket, but Earl shakes his head. "Don't. I'm not here to kill you. I'm here for answers." Sullivan slowly raises his hands. "Morrison, I heard you were alive." Surprised. "Honestly? Yes. We were told you died in Mexico. Cartel hit. I'm hard to kill. You should remember that." Sullivan moves carefully to a chair and sits. He's aged since Earl last saw him. Gray hair, deep lines around his eyes, the weight of years and secrets. "What do you want to know?" "Everything.
Colombia.
The mission. Why my team died while you lived." Sullivan closes his eyes. "It wasn't supposed to happen that way." "Then how was it supposed to happen?" "You were all supposed to die," Sullivan says simply. "The whole team. That was the plan. Create a scenario where Delta operators could be declared Kia, then recruit them into Lazarus." Earl feels rage building. "You sent us into an ambush. I followed orders. The mission was fabricate. From the start. There was no rogue CIA officer, no asset list. Just a trap designed to give intelligence a ghost unit. Men who officially didn't exist. And when I survived? You weren't supposed to. Neither was I. But things went wrong. The ambush was too effective. Your team died too quickly and you were too good. You completed a fake mission and recovered a fake list. Command didn't know what to do with you. So they gave me a new life and told me to disappear. Better than the alternative." Earl leans forward. "What alternative?" Sullivan meets his eyes. "Lazarus. The ghost program. Men who died once and could die again. Assassination, sabotage, wet work that couldn't be traced. That's what they wanted from you. But you rejected the promotion, chose retirement. So they let you go. And you?" "I took the deal. Joined Lazarus, ran operations for 5 years. Got out when I realized what we were becoming: government-sanctioned murderers with no accountability. I've been trying to live with it ever since." Earl stands and walks to the window. Outside, the quiet suburban street looks peaceful, normal. Nothing like the jungles of Colombia or the deserts of Mexico. How many others? In Lazarus? Dozens, maybe more. Some died on missions. Some disappeared. A few, like me, got out and tried to build normal lives. And my team? The men who died. Sullivan's voice cracks. They were good men. They deserved better. I've lived with their deaths every day for 20 years. If I could go back, change it. But you can't, Earl interrupts. None of us can. He turns from the window and looks at Sullivan. The DEA is investigating Lazarus. They'll want to talk to you. I know. I've been expecting them. Will you cooperate? Sullivan nods slowly. Yes, it's time. Past time. The program needs to end. If my testimony can help shut it down, I'll do it. Earl walks to the door, then pauses. One more question. Vicente Rojas, the cartel boss. How did he get information about my ranch? Sullivan frowns. I don't know. That wasn't Lazarus. We never operated in Mexico after your retirement. Someone fed him false intelligence. Made him think I had stolen money. Could be a coincidence. Or, Sullivan hesitates. There's a possibility someone wanted to flush you out. Make you visible again. Why? Because you're proof Lazarus existed. If they're trying to bury the program, loose ends like you and me become problems. Earl feels cold understanding settle over him. Someone in intelligence set Vicente on me. It's possible. I can't prove it, but it fits the pattern. Earl opens the door. Contact the DEA. Tell them everything. And Sullivan, if you're lying to me, if any of this is misdirection, I'll come back. And next time I won't just talk. Sullivan nods. I understand. For what it's worth, Morrison, I'm sorry. About your team. About all of it. Earl doesn't respond. He walks out into the night, leaving Sullivan alone with his guilt. The ride back to Texas is longer. Earl stops at a small town in Arkansas, finds a payphone, and calls Sarah Reyes. Where the hell are you? Sarah demands when she picks up. You disappeared. Maddox is dead. And, I know. I killed him. Vicente sent him. Earl, you can't just. I found Sullivan. He's ready to talk. He'll tell you everything about Lazarus, about Colombia, all of it. But there's something else. Someone in American intelligence might have fed Vicente information about me. Someone who wanted me exposed. Sarah is quiet for a moment. That's a serious accusation. Sullivan thinks Lazarus is trying to clean house. Eliminate anyone who knows about the program. If that's true, you're in more danger than we thought. I know. That's why I'm not coming back to the safe house. I need to disappear until this is over. Earl, wait. But he's already hung up. He has one more thing to do before he vanishes. Vicente Rojas sits in his office, smoking another cigar, when his phone rings. Unknown number. He considers not answering, then changes his mind. Yes, this is Earl Whitaker. The voice is calm, almost conversational. We need to end this. Vicente sits up straighter. Morrison, you're a hard man to kill. I want to make you an offer. Call off the contract. Forget about me, and I'll forget about you. Keep coming after me, and I'll burn your empire to the ground.
Vicente laughs.
You think you can threaten me? I'm not threatening. I'm explaining reality. I know where you live, where your family lives, where you keep your money. I know your supply routes, your distributors, your corrupt officials. I spent 20 years learning to find people who don't want to be found. If you push me, I'll use everything I know. The laughter dies. You're bluffing. Your youngest daughter, Maria, goes to school in Monterrey. Your mother lives in a compound outside Guadalajara. Your money is hidden in banks in the Caymans, Panama, and Switzerland. Your cocaine comes through, with safe houses. I'm going home. Earl, it's not safe. Nowhere's safe. But I'm not spending the rest of my life hiding. Sarah studies him for a long moment, then nods. Where will you go? Earl thinks about his ranch in Mexico, burned and abandoned. He thinks about the canyon where he fought Hector. He thinks about 20 years of solitude. I don't know yet, he says honestly. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere I can finally rest. Sarah hands him an envelope. Your immunity agreement. Signed and sealed. As far as the government is concerned, Daniel Earl Morrison is officially alive again. Clean record, full benefits, everything. Earl takes the envelope, feeling its weight. His old life returned. Thank you. What will you do? Find some peace, maybe, if that's possible. Sarah extends her hand. Good luck, Earl. If you ever need anything, I'll call. Earl promises, though they both know he won't. He walks away from the courthouse, from the DEA, from his past. The sun is setting, painting the sky the same blood-red color it was that night in Mexico when Raphael's men came for him. Earl finds a bus station and buys a ticket heading west. He's not sure where he's going, maybe Montana, maybe Wyoming, maybe Canada. Somewhere with space, with silence, with room to breathe. The bus pulls away as night falls, carrying him toward an uncertain future. Earl leans his head against the window and closes his eyes. For the first time in 20 years, he allows himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, he can finally leave the past behind. But old soldiers never really rest. They just find new ways to survive. 3 months later, in a small town in Montana, a bearded man opens a veterinary clinic. The locals know him as Earl Morrison, ex-military, quiet type who's good with animals and minds his own business. He lives in a small cabin outside town, rides his horse through the mountains, and never talks about his past. Sometimes, late at night, he still hears the gunfire, still sees the faces of men he killed, men who died because of him. But the nightmares are less frequent now. The guilt doesn't weigh quite as heavy. One day, a black SUV pulls up to his clinic. Earl tenses, hand moving toward the pistol he still keeps under his desk. But it's just Sarah Reyes, looking official in her DEA suit. "Relax," she says, smiling. "I'm just checking in. Long way to come for a check-in. We closed the case. Lazarus is officially shut down. 23 people indicted, including 3 senators and a deputy director at CIA. Sullivan's testimony was devastating. Good. There's something else." Sarah pulls out a file. "We found the person who fed Vicente the information about you. CIA analyst named Marcus Webb." Earl frowns. "That name. Same name as the fake rogue officer in your Colombia mission. Someone's idea of a joke, apparently. Webb was part of Lazarus trying to eliminate loose ends. He's in custody now." Earl takes the file but doesn't open it. "Is it over?" "As over as these things get. You're free, Earl. Truly free." After Sarah leaves, Earl stands on his porch and looks at the mountains. Free. He's not sure he remembers what that feels like, but he's willing to try. That evening, a young woman brings her sick dog to the clinic. Earl examines the animal with gentle hands, prescribes antibiotics, and tells her to come back in a week. The woman thanks him, and as she's leaving, she pauses. "You used to be military, didn't you?" she asks. Earl nods carefully. "A long time ago. Thank you for your service." Earl watches her go, those same hollow words following him. But this time, they don't feel quite so empty. He served, he survived, and now he's building something new. Not much, but it's his. As night falls over the Montana mountains, Earl locks up the clinic and rides his horse home. The wind carries the scent of pine and snow. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howls. Earl smiles. For the first time in 20 years, he's not waiting for the past to catch up. He's not preparing for the next fight, the next enemy, the next war. He's just living. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's more than enough. The stars come out, brilliant and cold above the mountains. Earl sits on his cabin porch, a cup of coffee in his hands, and allows himself a moment of peace. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges. But tonight, he's just a man watching the stars, far from deserts and cartels and ghosts. Vicente Rojas, in his compound in Nuevo Laredo, also looks at the stars. He made the right choice, he knows. Morrison, Earl, whoever he was, that was a fight he couldn't win. Better to focus on business, on profit, on building his empire. Some enemies aren't worth making. He pours himself a whiskey and toasts the empty air. "To survival," he says quietly, "and knowing when to quit." In Virginia, James Sullivan sits in a therapist's office, finally talking about Colombia, about the men who died, about the weight he's carried. It's not absolution, nothing can give him that, but it's a start. Maybe redemption is possible, even for men like him. And in the Mexican desert, the wind blows across an abandoned ranch. The buildings are ruins now, the barn just charred timber, the house a shell. But carved into a wooden post at the gate, still visible despite the weather, are 2 words: debt paid. The local police never figured out what happened that night. 17 dead cartel members, weapons stacked neatly, and a message that made no sense. Eventually, they stopped investigating. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. But the story spread. In cantinas and marketplaces, people whisper about El Gringo Fantasma, the ghost gringo who killed an army and disappeared. Some say he's still out there, watching, waiting. Others say he died in the desert, just another casualty of the drug wars. The truth, as always, is somewhere in between. Earl Morrison lived and lives still. Not as a soldier, not as a killer, not as a ghost. just as a man trying to find peace in a violent world. Some days are harder than others. Some nights the dreams still come. But he wakes up each morning to mountains and sky and the simple work of healing sick animals. It's not the life he planned. It's not the life he trained for. But it's the life he chose, and that makes all the difference. Months turn into years. Earl's clinic becomes successful. He makes friends in town, joins the volunteer fire department, even goes on a few dates with a widowed schoolteacher. He never tells anyone the whole truth about his past, but he doesn't hide who he is, either. People know him as a veteran who served, who saw action, who carries scars visible and invisible. That's enough. That's all they need to know. On the 20th anniversary of the Columbia mission, Earl takes a day off and rides into the mountains. He finds a quiet clearing with a view of the valley and builds a small cairn of stones. On 7 flat rocks, he carves the names of his team, the men who died believing they served something greater than themselves. Captain James Sullivan, Sergeant First Class Marcus Reynolds, Staff Sergeant David Chen,
Sergeant Miguel Santos, Corporal James O'Brien,
Corporal Anthony Martinez. He places the stones carefully, saying each name aloud. It's not a proper memorial. Their names are on a wall in Washington, marked as killed in action, heroes who died serving their country. But this is Earl's memorial, private and honest. I'm sorry I wasn't there, he says to the stones, to the wind, to the memory of men long gone. I'm sorry I lived when you didn't. I'm sorry for all of it. The wind carries his words away. Earl sits by the cairn until sunset, then rides home. It doesn't bring closure. Grief doesn't work that way, but it helps. Acknowledging the debt, the loss, the weight of surviving when others didn't. That night, he dreams of Columbia for the first time in months. But this time, it's different. His team is there, alive, laughing around a campfire. They don't blame him. They don't accuse. They just nod as if to say, we understand. You did what you had to do. Now live. Earl wakes with tears on his face but peace in his heart. The story could end here, with Earl Morrison finding redemption and peace in the Montana mountains. A retired soldier finally laying down his weapons and learning to live again. But life doesn't end in neat conclusions. Continues messy and complicated and real. 2 years after the testimony, Sarah Reyes visits again. This time, she's not alone. She brings a young man, maybe 25, with familiar eyes. Earl, Sarah says carefully. This is Michael Santos. Miguel Santos was his father. Earl stands frozen. Miguel Santos, one of his team, killed in Colombia. You were just a kid when... I was 5, Michael says. I barely remember him, but I've spent my whole life trying to understand what happened. Why he died. What he died for. The mission was classified, Earl says carefully. I can't. I know the truth, Michael interrupts. Agent Reyes told me. About Lazarus, about the setup, all of it. I know my father died in a fabricated mission designed to create ghost operators. Earl sinks back into his chair.
I'm sorry.
Your father was a good man. A great soldier. He deserved better. That's not why I'm here. Michael pulls out a photograph. Miguel Santos in uniform, young and proud, standing with his wife and young son. I'm here because I needed to meet you. The man who survived. The man my father trusted. I don't deserve that trust. Maybe not. But you have it anyway. My father would want me to tell you. It's okay. That you survived. That you're here and he's not. It's okay. Earl can't speak. Can barely breathe. After all these years, all this guilt, to hear those words from his friend's son is almost too much. Thank you, he finally manages. Michael stands to leave, then pauses. One more thing. I joined the army, following in my father's footsteps. But I wanted you to know. I'm not doing it for revenge, or to prove something. I'm doing it because I believe service matters. That sacrifice matters. Even when it's imperfect, even when people fail us, the ideal is worth fighting for. After they leave, Earl sits alone in his clinic, staring at the photograph Michael gave him. Miguel Santos, forever young, forever proud, forever gone. But also forever remembered. That's the debt Earl realizes. Not to die, not to suffer, but to remember, to carry the memory of fallen friends and to make their sacrifice mean something, even when the mission that killed them was based on lies. He can do that. He is doing that. Every day he chooses to live, to build, to heal instead of destroy. He honors them. The sun sets over Montana, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Earl locks up the clinic and rides home, the photograph safe in his pocket. Tomorrow he'll frame it, add it to the others he's collected over the years. Faces of men and women who served, who sacrificed, who deserved to be remembered. His past will never leave him. But maybe it doesn't have to. Maybe the key isn't forgetting or escaping. Maybe it's carrying those memories forward, letting them inform but not define who he is now. Earl Morrison was a soldier. Earl Whitaker was a ghost. But now he's just Earl, a veterinarian in a small Montana town, a man who helps sick animals and volunteers at the fire department and is slowly, carefully, learning to be part of a community again. It's not a perfect ending. Real life rarely gives us those, but it's an honest one. A man who did terrible things for what he thought were good reasons, who lost friends and comrades, who spent 20 years running from himself, finally finding a measure of peace. And sometimes that's enough. The story of Earl Morrison, Delta Force operative, ghost rancher, survivor, ends not with a bang but with a quiet evening in Montana. A man and his horse, riding toward a modest cabin. A coffee pot on the stove. A dog waiting at the door. Small things, normal things, human things. The rifles stay locked in the safe. The combat knife hangs on the wall, a reminder but not a tool. The satellite phone sits in a drawer, unused but charged, just in case. But Earl doesn't expect to need it. Vicente kept his word. Lazarus is shut down. The men responsible face justice. And Earl Morrison, officially alive again, is building the life he never thought he'd have. Some nights are still hard. Some days, he catches himself scanning rooflines for snipers or planning escape routes from the grocery store. Old habits die hard, and some wounds never fully heal. But he's trying, and that matters. As darkness falls and stars emerge above the mountains, Earl sits on his porch with his dog beside him and a beer in his hand. The night is peaceful, quiet, safe. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote calls. Earl smiles, recognizing the sound not as a threat but as a sign of life, wild and free and belonging to this place, just like him. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more thrilling stories of conflict, survival, and redemption. Drop a comment below telling us what types of stories you'd like to hear next: military thrillers, survival tales, historical conflicts, or something completely different. We read every suggestion and love hearing from you. Take care and remember, everyone has a past, but not everyone gets a second chance to make peace with it. Until next time.